Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. I got an exciting update about the DS3 visual overhaul mod. Version 0.12 is out now, includes Anne Orlando, as you can see behind me. Overall minor changes to Anne Orlando, because obviously I thought by default it was absolutely gorgeous, so I didn't want to like super modify that. But I did remove a ton of the point lights that were, for instance, in this building, there were a ton of point lights that didn't make any sense because it obviously is having like zero light sources other than the light from out here, which I probably could add a couple point lights here to simulate some sort of bounce lighting. But generally, it's supposed to be incredibly dark because it's a different Anne Orlando, right? And Aldrich is taken over. And so as you can see in here, it's completely dark now, which I actually think makes it much more scary to go through there and probably get jump scared by the big spider monster. I also modified this boss room and removed an absolute crap ton of point lights because I kept the spotlights that are outside that are casting these really nice like little god ray style streaks of light, and they're still hitting the boss room, casting shadows. Of course, I changed all of these to be shadow casting, and so I think it's a scarier, darker boss room, which for me is exactly what I wanted, and because Anne Orlando is meant to be sort of dark and different than before, and yeah, the biggest thing actually that I fixed in this release has nothing to do specifically with Anne Orlando. I finally looked into the level of detail system with how many of you may have noticed when you're playing the game, there's very noticeable pop-in, but not like the normal pop-in that you would think of in games where like you'll see grass pop in completely from like not being there before as you walk closer to something. And in DS3 though, it's different versions of the same mesh, basically popping in higher quality versions as you get closer to something, which is a classic level of detail system, right? But the way that they do it is not very stealthy, because generally you want your LOD system to be not noticeable to the player as much as possible because it obviously doesn't look great. And so that's kind of where DS3, I think, sort of fell down a little bit. Now we have to remember it's a 2016 video game, so it's not like this came out in 2023. LOD systems have gotten more advanced, and obviously Elden Ring is an example of that, where it's not perfect, but it's certainly better. And yeah, basically it'll do many different versions of the same mesh as you're getting closer to it, but it happens a little too often. And in Farron Swamp and Untended Graves and a lot of different areas, it's super, super noticeable. So I basically dove into there's a parameter file literally called like level of detail. And I just hadn't looked into it before. And there's one for Xbox One, there's one for PS4, and then there's one for like the PC release. And every map piece has a different LOD ID, so it basically controls its behavior with the LOD system. I basically went in and looked at all the different codes for it and found that they already had ones created that were testing out, essentially disabling the system, but not fully disabling it. Like for instance, I can just use like sort of basic numbers. Like so for Anne Orlando, for instance, most of the meshes by default used their ID was 50 for their LOD system. And that meant that their distance for like high quality objects and whatnot and versus low quality objects was like 60, and then their other number was 120. And so that kind of controlled the distance. And so what I did is I changed it to ID number 3, which pushes it out to the 60 number is now moved up to 1,000. And the 120 number is moved up to 2,000. And so the distance is so far to where you'll never notice it anymore, at least in my experience. I've changed it for every level that I've worked on thus far, and I'll keep changing it for the levels I work on. And that way, it's just not noticeable anymore. And that's mostly down to the fact that this is a 2016 game, This geometry is not obviously cutting edge. It wasn't cutting edge when it came out, and I still think it looks really great, but our GPUs are powerful enough. And the recommended ones that I've sort of put on the mod page were showing my specs, which I have a 2060, which is a card that came out in 2018. And so it's nothing, amazing or spectacular. It's less powerful than the Xbox Series X by like 3 to 4 teraflops generally. Of course, not comparable between GPU architectures fully, but broad strokes, the easily the Series X has a more powerful GPU than what mine is, just for a reference point. And yeah, that's where like most of the GPUs that are out there that want to run DS3 today won't have an issue with changing this LOD system. They could render the highest quality version with no issue. And so that's basically what my mod does, is say, just render the good one. Just render the good one all the time for whatever's visible to the camera, and it just fixes it. And so I think this is actually a pretty huge change that some people don't notice it, and that's fine. When I posted about it, some people were like, what pop-in issue? I don't know what you're talking about. That's totally fine. God bless them. That's totally fine for not noticing that. I'm a little jealous of that. I noticed it hardcore. It was never a big detractor of like playing the game, obviously. I was like, oh, that's fine. But it's one of those holdovers from the console generation that DS3 came out on, which was the Xbox One, PS4. And their PC release, they just didn't really mess around too much with a lot of the parameters to make them like PC specific, from what I could tell. But yeah, so that's basically DS3 visual overhaul 0.12. I believe the updates to future areas will be quicker. I recently figured out a trick with the program that I use to modify the shadow casting setting mostly in bulk. And there's issues that come with that too, but it should be a lot quicker. And so that's certainly my goal. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, this little rambling of small things that I talked about. Next video, not sure what it's going to be about. Might be a DS2 thing. Might be more Demon Souls. We'll see. I'm still investigating things on those games to update and change. But yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know what you think of DS3. Do you think this is a worthwhile change? Did you notice the pop-in issue? Did you not notice it? Is Anne Orlando your favorite area? What do you think of Aldrich as a boss in the boss room and the lore behind it? Just anything, really. Comment whatever you want. I hang out in the comments. I try to respond to most of them. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Thank you from SoftServe Nation, Legion. I don't know. I'm not going with servants. I've decided that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share. It actually really helps a lot. So thank you very much.